Sup gamers, Baragon301 here, and today we're taking a look at a very controversial topic in the video game community. That of course being my favorite video game series of all time, Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter is a video game series first created by Capcom back in 2004, in an experiment to basically test the PS2's online capabilities. The series got pretty popular over time in Japan, so they didn't stop making them. Now I'm sure that most of you have at least heard of this series. Heck, Monster Hunter World is Capcom's best-selling video game. They recently made a movie of a similar name, and if you're a Godzilla fan, you've likely got a Nargacuga sitting on your shelf, despite not even knowing something as simple as how to trap a Nargacuga. But what is Monster Hunter? I'm sure at least a few of you are asking. Well, you see, I could make the unoriginal joke of it's a video game where you hunt monsters, but I am a man of originality who would never steal an idea from anyone else. So basically it's a video game where you hunt monsters. Dang it! So yeah, Monster Hunter is a game where you hunt monsters and get items from them, so you can craft and upgrade equipment in order to fight bigger and bigger monsters. It's a fun and rewarding gameplay loop that may sound boring, but the games make it pretty fun. I remember when I first discovered Monster Hunter, my family had just bought a Nintendo Wii, and so we were trying to fill our game library. And one of the first games that caught my eye at GameStop was Monster Hunter Tri. Yeah, my mom didn't let me get it because it said alcohol use on the back. But a few weeks later, my dad went ahead and bought it anyways, and we both played it, and we were confused. The combat was very slow and clunky. I couldn't read, and the game was already very confusing. So my dad completely abandoned the game, but I still played it and mostly screwed around with the Jaggies in Area 6. Around the time of 3 Ultimate, I discovered YouTube, and as I watched YouTubers play that, I picked Try back up again, and got my butt kicked. Every single monster absolutely wrecked me, and to this day, I still have a guide on how to kill the easiest monster in the game up on the channel. Truthfully, it wasn't until Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate that I actually got into the series. Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is my favorite game in the series, and is even my favorite game of all time. It has a great roster of monsters. I like its combat, its characters, the story, the music. My only problem is that all the maps are terrible, but other than that, it's a fantastic game. From then on, I was hooked on Monster Hunter. I've played every game since Try besides Portable 3rd, and I've had plenty of fun with all of them. While I'm not as big of a fan of the newer games as I am of the older games, Monster Hunter still manages to put out good games almost annually, and with each new release, the series becomes friendlier for new players. So let's see why you, person who has never played Monster Hunter, should play Monster Hunter. Let's start by taking a look at what I'm sure most people are here for, the monsters. The beasts of Monster Hunter are generally considered some of the most well-designed creatures in gaming. While all the monsters are fantastical, the majority of them are still believable. The monsters may have crazy abilities and powers, but all of them are biologically explainable. Except elder dragons. They also manage to make each monster unique and different. Even monsters that are technically the same monster like Rathian and Rathalos have very different fights. Rathian is more land-based. She charges and does her signature poison tail spin, while Rathalos prefers the air, raining fire from above, just out of your reach, which is why Rathian is better. As much fun as the combat is, though, a lot of the monsters can be pretty annoying, and for a variety of reasons. Some monsters are fast and hard to catch, so you spend the whole fight chasing the monster. Some monsters have a bunch of annoying moves, and some monsters put a spin on it by having massive hitboxes. And some monsters just have massive amounts of health. Screw basically every DLC Elder Dragon in World and Iceborne. But there are still plenty of fun monsters, and hey, Monster Hunter Rise actually has mostly fun fights. Even Kushala Daora is fun now. But you need a weapon, and luckily Monster Hunter has 14 weapon classes to choose from. First there's the Greatsword, which is the weapon everyone plays first because it's the big sword on the box, only to find out it's super slow, but if you stick with it, she's pretty good. Then there's the Longsword, which is considered the best weapon, but is really the worst weapon because if you go online, especially in Rise, you'll be hunting with nothing but longsword players, and they will trip you. Then there's the real best weapon, the Sword and Shield. Once considered the beginner weapon, and also bad, in reality it is a complex weapon to master that can do it all. it can block, it can cut tails, it can stun, it can do aerial attacks, it can counter, and all elemental damage is actually viable with it. People act like it didn't get good until the newer games, but the truth is all you have to do in the older games was a little trick. Next there's the dual blades, which were considered the weeb weapon before longsword took over, and you're basically super fast and hit a crap ton, but each individual hit doesn't deal very much. You can also go into demon mode to get even faster and deal slightly more damage. Next there's the hammer, which is like a normal hammer, but bigger. It has lots of slow attacks that hit hard, and it can KO monsters almost as well as a sword and shield. Then you've got the hunting horn, which is like a normal hammer, but you can play songs that buff yourself and your team. But don't you dare call it a support weapon, because it's an absolute beast on the battlefield. Next is the lance, which is a big stick and a shield that lets you poke the monster and be the team's tank. Unfortunately, lance mains have grown scarcer and scarcer over the years due to one weapon, the gun lance. The gun lance is like the normal lance, but now it makes explosions, so it's automatically better. Next weapon is the switch axe, which is a big axe that switches. It turns into what is basically a giant greatsword, but surprisingly this form increases your attack speed. Next you have the charge blade, which is a big sword and shield that can turn into an axe. It is considered the most complex weapon, but really all you have to do is this. Hold down A, get files. If you want, you can do that again to get files that are red. Next you go into axe mode. Push both attack buttons, then cancel the attack. Boom, now you have red shield. So keep the files charged in sword mode and discharge them in axe mode. See? Simple. Next you have the insect glaive, which is the second most stupid weapon. It's a stick that lets you jump, and you have a pet bug. But if you don't play insect glaive, you still get a pet bug that you can never get rid of. Also, you'll get this nectar stuff that'll take up a ton of room in your item box, and basically every quest in 4 Ultimate gives you this stuff. Also, the glaive's gimmick is aerial attacks. But the truth is most weapons have aerial attacks nowadays, and will likely get the mount before the insect glaive can. Next you have the bow, which seems cool at first until you discover it's pretty tough to be good at. And the best way to play bow changes like every game. Then finally there's the light bow gun and the heavy bow gun, and also the medium bow gun. The bow guns control almost the exact same, except the light bow gun is faster and deals less damage, while the heavy bow gun is slower and deals more damage. So yeah, there's a lot of different weapons, and each one feels pretty unique and different. Even ones that are very similar, like the light and heavy bow gun, play completely differently. So if you ever get bored with one weapon, you can always switch over to another. Another big part of the games is the armor sets. Now you may just think they're a cosmetic thing that just decreases how much damage you take. But each armor piece gives you these things called skill points, which allow you to gain passive abilities. Some of these abilities can be pretty pointless, like defense up, while some are only useful for certain weapons, or weapons with certain elements. And others are the meta, and are required on every set to stand a remote chance against the last monster. They also look really cool, and there's light armor so you can just wear whatever you want and still have good skills. Nowadays, if a game wants to survive, it needs a good multiplayer, and luckily, Monster Hunter has almost always been an online multiplayer focused game. Except on the PSP and the 3DS version of Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. But anyways, unlike most online games though that are competitive, Monster Hunter is instead a cooperative game. Though technically there are arena quests which are competitive, but nobody ever plays those. Instead, the online is all about screwing around in the Gathering Hub, then going out on a hunt with 3 other guys to try and take down some big monster, together as a team. I'd be lying if I said I've never raged while playing something like Smash Ultimate, but I don't actually remember any time I've raged while playing Monster Hunter Online. I save that for when I can only do online quests offline. Screw basically every DLC Elder Dragon in World and Iceborne. Another crazy thing about the online is the servers. I think we can all agree that Nintendo has awful online servers. Most games can be incredibly laggy, but Monster Hunter Rise and Generations Ultimate on Switch both have basically no lag or anything you'd expect. Now I've come across some lag, teleporting monsters, stuff like that. But usually the game will automatically kick the person who has bad internet, and then the hunt will resume on course. But what about the fan base? The most dreaded thing about getting into anything ever? Well, The Monster Hunter fanbase is generally considered one of the least toxic out there. Now, there has started to become a little bit of elitism, generally from people who've played the older games, and make fun of new players because their game isn't as hard. I won't act like I've never done this, but the majority of fans will legitimately try to help out and guide new players. Old school players had it rough. The games were a lot less forgiving and didn't explain much. And you're instead meant to learn it all yourself, so fans of the series have become accustomed to helping out and guiding new players. One of the craziest stories of the fanbase came around the time of Monster Hunter Rise's demo, when this, at the time, not terribly big channel made a video talking about why he doesn't like the game. He found it to be slow and clunky and just not fun. Every Monster Hunter fan found the video, but rather than telling the dude that he's an idiot, everyone said, yep, that's how it starts. The guy was so overwhelmed by the positivity of the community, and everyone explaining that hating the game the first time is kinda natural. He then went and played Monster Hunter World, and now the guy posts Monster Hunter content regularly. The Monster Hunter community on the internet is one of the nicest out there, which helps make a great game series even better. It also helps because these games can be a bit confusing or difficult. Monster Hunter is a fantastic video game series where you take down big monsters with big sticks and cats. So I highly recommend many of you check it out. It's certainly not the type of game that will appeal to everyone. The combat can be slow and clunky, it's not some big open world experience, and Monster Hunter games can be very long. But if you want a challenging, fun, and rewarding action game experience that you can get hundreds of hours out of, then I definitely recommend that you check out Monster Hunter. I hope to see you all again next time.